prayed about on whether to post the reading of this letter or just mail it directly. And I was persuaded strongly yesterday by the Lord to write a letter to the Prime Minister of Israel. And so I'm now persuaded to read it to you. So I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to mail it. And it's basically a letter just stating, don't forget who we worship, which he is the Holy One of Israel. And we don't need to be afraid. So it's directed to the Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett. Dear Prime Minister Bennett, I write from Knoxville, Tennessee, in the United States of America. Each morning and evening I pray and recite the Shema facing Jerusalem. I know of Jerusalem's beauty because I've seen pictures. Friends have seen it, and I've seen documentaries. However, I do not personally know of its beauty as I have never been able to visit. For years, I've wanted to travel to Israel, even saving my change from groceries, etc., so I would not make too much of a dent in our personal finances. I stay home with my boys, homeschool, and am a homemaker. However, in 2019, I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, and my husband sweetly offered to send me, as he knew I wanted to go for years. So since 2019, I've been trying to see it for myself. In fact, I had a deposit for a tour, still on deposit, in 2019, but COVID became an issue and Israel closed its gates or borders. Honestly, and with all respect, I was shocked that the gates to Israel would be closed to the world. How could the gates to our home, to Israel's people, be closed when we are commanded in the Torah to attend Hashem's festivals in Jerusalem? According to Deuteronomy 16:16, we are commanded to attend in person. 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place where he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. I know the virus is scary and provokes fear, but we serve the Holy One of Israel. I do not see any justification for closing the gates to the world, to the nations, and to the followers of Torah, at least that I can find in the scriptures. The access to all outside Israel is denied out of fear. However, dear Prime Minister, we are not a people of fear. Do we not have Adonai? Do we not worship El Shaddai? Do we not worship Jehovah Sabaoth, the God of hosts? He is our sustainer. He is Jehovah Rapha, our healer. I frequently read online the stipulations for entering what I know to be my inheritance, my homeland, Israel. So much COVID paperwork is required, all of which I do not have. What I do have is the blood of Yeshua, and by his wounds I am healed, Isaiah 53. Indeed, living with this cancer, I know our healer. I can assure you, he heals, he protects, he defends, he sustains. I believe you know this as well. This cancer has eaten away at my bones throughout my entire skeletal structure, as well as entering my liver and one of my ovaries. In 2019, I underwent a rod and hip surgery so I could walk without concern of irreparably breaking my body. Honestly, I thought my dream to go to Israel was gone. However, even with 4 to 7 months to live, per the doctors, I regained my strength to walk. I began chemotherapy treatment. The Lord allowed the chemo to work, and he has extended my days to this 2.5 years. My dream to see Israel is once again alive and strong, as am I. Interestingly, I am just 3 months younger than you, dear brother, a young 49 years old. What a dream to be in Israel for my 50th Jubilee year. However, I still face my homeland and closed gates. You see, in January 2020, I contracted COVID, as did my husband and teenage boys. By Adonai's chesed and I and my family survived and now have beautiful antibodies. I do not have any paperwork showing any of that, but it is true nonetheless. I do not have the vaccine, as I have the antibodies. Indeed, I have read by Israel researchers that having natural antibodies trumps any vaccine, many times safer. In addition, the vaccine may possibly cause additional harm to my body, so considering these thoughts, we will not receive them. It saddens me that I may not get to see Israel this side of eternity. These regulations and needed papers prevent it. It also saddens me that Israel has closed the gates to the nations. Has Israel forgotten that they are the city on the hill? They are the light to the nations. They, above all nations, cannot nor should not act in fear of anything. Has not Hashem proved himself faithful to his people? Israel serves the Holy One. Israel is the beacon of hope, not fear, to the nations. May I remind you of Deuteronomy 28, 1-14, and Exodus 15:26. Israel has opportunity to proclaim truth to the nations. Hearing and obeying, which means Shema, brings protection from the Holy One of Israel. Closing the gates out of fear is wrong and shows the doubt of Israel to the provision of the Holy One. I implore you, dear Prime Minister, dear brother, please open the gates. Open them wide before the feasts of Israel begin. Do not require vaccine papers. Do not require stipulations. Those show that Israel makes stipulations even greater than Adonai. He says for us to worship. He says to open the gates so all his children may enter and worship. Let us come to the pilgrimage festivals. Let us come to worship. Let us see our homeland and honor the nation that worships the one true God, the Holy One of Israel. May it be known throughout the world that Israel is not afraid. Israel has nothing to lose, as we are the children of Adonai. I will always stand with Israel. Perhaps someday I will stand in Israel as well. I could not allow my life to be completed without encouraging you in our defender, our healer, and our God. I implore you, show the nations that Israel is the only nation that does not fear. Show them Israel does not fear anything, but has fear and reverence for only one, Elohim, the Holy One of Israel. May you be persuaded to proclaim his power. And who knows that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. Baruch Hashem Adonai. Bless the name of Adonai. Landra. I'll let you know if anything comes of this. Actually, we should probably hear about it in the news. May you receive this letter, and may he not be afraid.